Is there anything better than spending the weekends out in the nature? Some people drive to the nearby forest to enjoy fragrances of passing summer, others go to the mountains to alpine meadows, and some people prefer to rest at their countryside houses or dachas. After the bustle and stressful rhythm of a densely populated city, outdoor recreation is a great way to relax. Common weekend ritual for many Kazakhstanis is cooking shashlik. This delicious marinated meat dish on skewers is prepared on hot coals.
Неповторимый аромат шашлыку.
It was Saxaul that provided a unique aroma to shashlik. 10-15 years ago, it was impossible to imagine cooking shashlik without Saxaul. But times are changing, and here's my advice. Apple and wild apricot twigs can also replace Saxaul. Cherry twigs give a wonderful aroma too. Dry grapevine is also suitable.
Если у вас есть виноградная лоза, вот такая старая, сухая, но она очень ароматная, это тоже неплохо. А если люди выехали на пикник впервые или из города на скорую руку, то они приобретают.
For amateurs who went for the picnic outdoors for the first time, this kind of prepackaged wood charcoal is available. Let's start cooking shashlik.
На каком-то заводе. Ну, сейчас начнем готовить сам шашлык. Вот сейчас жар достаточно хороший.
Now, when all our twigs burned down, the heat is just right. There were mainly apricot twigs. Now let's arrange our skewers and try to treat our close ones with some good food.
Попробуем порадовать близких хорошим блюдом.
Meat prepared on coal like this is no worse than the one cooked over Saxaul. People always appreciated Saxaul for its ability to retain heat for a long time. The villagers used it for heat and also fed sprouts to the livestock. Not so long ago, Saxaul Forests occupied half the area of all forests in Kazakhstan. This desert tree inhabits arid western and southern regions of the country. Saxaul Forests protect soil from wind erosion and help desert preserve its natural ecosystem. But by the beginning of the 21st century, Saxaul stocks had decreased significantly. People barbarously cut down forests, which led to an environmental disaster. Desert sands came close to people's dwellings. This 10-meter mountain of sand was blown here by the wind. It seems impossible to fight back the sand. You can dig all day or set up any fence, it won't help. Look what's happening here. Only through thoughtful actions people can overcome this rampant disaster. The village is very close. This is getting really dangerous. This is the village of Bagbakti in the Balkhash district of Almaty region. The population is 5,000 people. For decades, people have grazed cattle on the outskirts, collected firewood near the village, and cut down Saxaul, the only type of fuel available nearby. Now villagers deal with consequences. Sand dunes come closer every year. Sand is everywhere. Windy weather causes sandstorms. People have to clear sand-covered roads and yards. Fighting the desert on your own is impossible. This is a big problem for locals, says Bazarkul Sirkeva, a resident of the Bagbakti village. Does this dune right behind your house bother you? It does in the summer when it's hot. This pile spreads sand and dust all over the place. And what about winter? During winter, spring and autumn, we are fine. There's no mud in here, unlike the center. The water dries immediately when it rains, absorbed by the sand. Do you burn Saxaul for heating during winter? It is forbidden for 5 years now. We don't get Saxaul, use just coal and regular firewood. Now people understand the need to protect nature, to compensate for the damage caused. The environment shapes the lifestyle of the villagers. In harsh desert conditions, it is difficult to stock up on fuel for the winter and feed livestock. Even growing a tree or flowers in the courtyard is not an easy task. Water is worth its weight in gold. As long as there is life-giving moisture, people will keep living in this deserted land.
Вот из таких колодцев до сих пор.
The villagers still pump water from the wells. Paradoxically, but under 10-12 meters of sand, there is a pure spring water. This water is used for cooking.
И там чистейшая родниковая вода. Ее используют, конечно, в основном для приготовления пищи.
Do you use it to water cattle too? Yes. Is it salty? Yes, it is. Let me try it. Slightly salty. We left the courtyard of the hospitable hostess, a small oasis among the sands. In the Balhaj district, almost all villages are situated near the river Li. The area is arid and deserted. Constant winds contribute to the movement of sand dunes. Mangistau region and Aral area are under the same threat of desertification. It is impossible to resist this sand, and people have no one to blame but themselves. Though I can understand them. Those who live in these houses do not want to go far for firewood. I saw something similar near the Aral Sea. Local village school was literally covered with sand. People created this disaster, and people have to eliminate it. Saxaul woodlands can stop sand movement. When several Saxaul trees grow nearby, they are called forests, although they do not create any shade. The oldest trees grow up as high as 8 meters. The trunk of the plant is curved up to 1 meter in diameter. Saxaul leaves are shaped like scales. Photosynthesis is carried out by its green sprouts. The tree blooms with pink or light crimson-colored flowers. Although the tree looks fragile, it is firmly rooted in sandy and rocky soils, using a strong root system. A drought-resistant, hardy tree can hold up to 2 tons of sand. Saxaul helps people preserve surface soils and thereby prevent desertification. The Bakanas State Forestry works on revival of Saxaul forests in the Balhaj district. Its territory is more than 1 million hectares. Saxaul occupies 812,000 hectares, more than half of the area of local forests. White and black Saxauls grow here. Any seaside beach would envy this fine sand. It is extremely difficult to grow anything in our climate. The temperature drops to minus 30 degrees Celsius in the winter and rises up to plus 40 degrees in the summer. It seems that only Juzgun, Caligonum shrubs and tamarisk are able to grow here, and Saxaul. Yes, the sands of the arid Balhaj district can only be stopped by frost-resistant Saxaul seedlings and other desert plants adapted to the conditions of the hot summer. A few years ago, Kazakhstan launched a project to restore Saxaul Forests. The experiment was supported by the Global Environment Facility of the United Nations Development Programme. They established nurseries to grow Saxaul seedlings in. In 2015, planting of this relic tree began near the Bagbakti village as well. We are on a dune. Just a few years ago it was completely bare. Today there are plantings everywhere. What is the survival rate of Saxaul here? Considering growing seedlings, about 30–40%. Years and decades shall pass until this young Saxaul will grow up. Assuming people won't disturb it, will it spread to other dunes? Will it save the village? Definitely. In 10 years, Saxaul will grow stronger, reproduce, and forest will spread. One of the ways to deal with moving sand is reed fences, about 30 centimeters high. They are arranged in the form of squares. Saxaul sprouts are planted in the center. Today, these anti-sand barriers are installed on an area of 1 hectare. More than 2,000 seedlings of Saxaul, Caligonum and Silverberry were planted here. The average lifespan of Saxaul is about 40 years. This vast fenced territory with such unusual allotments is supposed to prevent sand from moving further, since it moves like water, and Saxaul trees are planted here. You work with huge plantations in the forestry. Do you use such reed fences there as well? According to the plan, every year we collect 500 kilograms of seeds from 100 hectares of Saxaul. Then we plant another 100 hectares of Saxaul. According to the technology, the arable land strip should be 8 meters. The tractor plows the land and then seeds are planted manually. On 20 hectares of the nursery, we plant Saxaul seedlings in small areas of 4 by 9 meters. When planting Saxaul seedlings, we plow the soil as if it were a grown-up tree. We use a 1-year-old seedlings. The distance between the seedlings should be within 1 meter. This is how we grow Saxaul seedlings.
91 метр аралық қашықтықта сексеуіл көшеттерін егіп жасаймыз.
After being relocated to another soil, seedlings may take a long time to root. Some of them don't make it. People have to return to this site and plant new seedlings next year. There are several causes of poor survival rates. Seeds shifting by wind, the absence of seed trees, drought and salinity of soils. The cultivation of Saxaul is a laborious and expensive task. Some grow well, some don't, and trees are sparse. What does it depend on? It depends on the quality of the seed. Secondly, on weather conditions, rain or drought. Saxaul grows well on clean sandy areas. There are 3 types of Saxaul in Kazakhstan: black, white and Zaysan Saxaul. The first is a salt-tolerant, large shrub reaching a height of 7 meters, has very long roots that feed on groundwaters, so the shoots are well saturated with moisture. White Saxaul is also called Persian, most commonly grows in sandy soil, but it doesn't tolerate saline places. Zaysan Saxaul is found mainly in the foothills. The first 2 species are used to preserve forests. Saxaul absorbs carbon and accumulates it in the form of above-ground and underground phytomass, becoming a food base and habitat of many desert animals. Many Saxaul trees grow in the Ile-Balhash Reserve. The guide Sarah Kabilov told us about its amazing properties. A lot can be said about Saxaul. Why don't we add something Saxaul is famous for? I remember hearing from the early childhood about various useful properties of Saxaul. First of all, it is a great fuel producing a lot of heat. Our ancestors were always using Saxaul as heat source.
Қысты күндері не қылау, осы не нәрсе болса да, осы жылулық осы Saxaul арқылы аламыз көбінесе.
Sometimes Saxaul is referred to as mystery tree. This tree doesn't cease to amaze. Recently, scientists discovered a rare metal of rhenium in its shoots. It is also known that Saxaul leaves contain alkaloids which are used in the treatment of cardiovascular diseases. This suggests that Saxaul itself has not yet been fully studied. I heard that Saxaul has healing properties. And it does. Our ancestors also suffered from allergy. Though at that time this disease was not as widespread as it is now. As preventive procedure, people kindled dry branches of young Saxaul and inhaled its smoke. Ancestors said that this smoke kills all allergens and microbes. This is a traditional medicine that our grandfathers believed in.
Бұл енді үлкен ата-бабаларымыздың өзімен көзімен көрген, жасаған бір емі болатын.
Surprisingly, even the ashes of Saxaul have healing power.
Қазақ халқы жалпыда мал шаруашылығымен айналысты. Олар енді ет жейді, ет жегеннен оның сүйектері қалды. Ол сүйектерді тастамады.
Since ancient times, the Kazakh people were engaged in cattle breeding. Bones of dead animals were not thrown out. They were collected, put into a cauldron, some ash was added, and all this was cooked for several hours on Saxaul wood until the bones began to secrete fat. Then the mixture was cooled to a certain temperature and thickened. People used this mess to make soap. It was used not only for washing clothes, but also for the treatment of skin diseases.
Одан жасайтын нәрсе енді одан сабын жасайды. Бұл сабын жасаған кезде ол тек қана сабын болып кір жуу ғана қолданбайды. Оны тері ауруларына қолданылады.
Now Saxaul needs protection. Therefore, in 2004, a ban was introduced in Kazakhstan on cutting down Saxaul in the areas of state forest funds. Over 10 years, the ban was extended to 2018. This measure gave tangible results. In 2013, the increase of Saxaul forests amounted to 22.7%. Saxaul is growing slow. Restoration of forests is a matter of several decades. Therefore, the moratorium on the cutting of Saxaul was extended for another 5 years until 2023. Every year, forestry employees carry out sanitary cleaning of Saxaul forests. Otherwise, there is a risk of fire. Old half-rotten trees prevent young seedlings from growing, but local residents are not allowed to collect dead wood or chop old trees without special permission. Non-compliance constitutes an administrative offense. Leonid, is this a result of cutting? Yes, someone broke the Saxaul. There you can see the branches. Maybe someone got off the road and broke it. Why can't people use these old fallen branches in case they happen to come across such? These dry branches might become the source of a fire or pests. Our population is almost 100,000 people. If everyone goes into the forest to collect wood without permit, the forest will vanish. The forestry workers must collect those branches in designated areas. The Committee for Forestry and Wildlife gives permission to collect dead wood. A limit is allocated according to the submitted application. The forestry harvests Saxaul and sells it for the needs of the population for heating in the cold season.
Для нужд местного населения, для отопления в отопительный сезон.
Growing Saxaul forest is not an easy task. It takes years. In addition, Saxaul has dangerous enemies. How and from what does Saxaul forest have to be protected? We are going to the Plant Protection Institute. Let's see what measures are taken to protect the trees. We have just returned from Bagbakti village, where UNDP conducted a bold experiment. The fact is that the sand creeps into the village, so the Saxaul seedlings were planted to solve this problem. But the survival rate is not high enough. Why can't Saxaul take root? There are many reasons. First of all, pests that destroy young Saxaul in the spring. They infest Saxaul during summer and autumn too. For example, in the spring there are many Saxaul weevils that switch to cultivated plants such as sugar beet. In the desert, they need plant juices. They bite the plants and at the same time destroy the shoots of Saxaul. Cutworms are the real bane for Saxaul. They turn up in the summer and can destroy up to 800,000 hectares of Saxaul. There were years when trees stood absolutely bare, with no leaves.
800 тысяч гектаров саксаульников, понимаете, они полностью стояли без листьев, такие годы были.
Desert jewel beetles destroy the roots. Gallnets, cutworms and other harmful insects also cause great damage to the trees. Before planting seeds, you need to check soil for pests.
Все считают, думают, что вот набрали семена.
Many people think that all the seeds collected will grow naturally on their own, but most of it is rubbish. Over 90% of what is here is rubbish. Seeds need to be diagnosed and cured first. It is necessary to determine which treatment to use. Rotten seeds must be destroyed. If curing is possible, we treat the seeds. Also, we give recommendations on how and where to plant them.
Если возможно их вылечить, мы их лечим и даем рекомендации, как надо садить, в какое время.
When is the right time to plant Saxaul? It depends on Saxaul type. Planting period is different for each variety. In Tajikistan and South Kazakhstan, Saxaul is planted in November. In the Aral district of Kızıldağ region, Saxaul is planted in February, because in February there is an abundance of water which helps young trees to take root. We also add root growth stimulants. We can show which stimulants improve chances for the seed to take root for 100%. It is necessary to constantly monitor weather forecasts. If there is a weevil infestation, it is necessary to use biopesticides for overnight, which completely destroy pests but don't harm the environment. There are many means to control pests, biological ones for instance. Each harmful insect has its own diseases, bacteria and fungi that can kill it. Those biopesticides are used to protect and improve plant seeds. What recommendations can scientists give to the forestry that cultivates Saxaul? We would recommend forestries to bring their seeds to us before planting. We'll check them for viruses, bacteria, fungal diseases, insects and other harmful organisms, conduct a full examination of these seeds. We can make them healthier by carrying out inlay and encapsulation procedures. Make seed pelleting in order to include an aquasorbent and other biologically active substances. Add extra soil, humic acids and root growth stimulants to increase chances of the seed to sprout by 100%.
Туда включить, чтобы мы могли включить корнеобразователи, чтобы это уже семя, оно зашло 100%.
Scientists believe that there is a need for a long-term state program for reproduction of Saxaul forests. We need scientific help in this matter. The Plant Protection Institute conducts researches on Saxaul diseases and offers innovative methods for their treatment. We came to the laboratory of phytopathology. Here they check what diseases a particular plant is suffering from. Right now we are talking about the seeds of Saxaul. So what do you do after you get seed samples? The first thing we study is the seed's germination in seed-growing chambers. We register the germination of seeds on the 3rd, 7th and 10th days.
Учитываем их схожесть на 3-й, на 7-й и 10-й дни. Также делаем...
We also selectively grow samples on nutrient media to determine the infection of certain pathogens. It can be bacteria or fungi. Viral diseases are tested in the molecular genetics laboratory.
Вирусные заболевания проверяются в другом лаборатории, в лаборатории молекулярной генетики.
Scientists at the Plant Protection Institute have put together a large collection of forest pests. The reference collection of insects includes more than 3,000 storage units and is annually updated with new specimens. Here are the cutworms. Their larvae harm the plants. But they have their own bacterial and fungal diseases. We try to use what nature gives us. In the laboratory, we develop biopesticides for pest control.
Конечно, все уже устроено в природе. Чтобы это все использовать, мы в лаборатории биотехнологий разрабатываем препараты для них. Это получается биопрепараты.
And now we are going on a raid around the city together with the staff of the Almaty Department of the Regional Forestry Inspectorate. We are checking outlets if there is a Saxaul on sale. We drove all over the city. No Saxaul was found. There are other types of firewood in the market. Here we have apple tree, pear, apricot, plum, cherry. It turns out your work was not in vain. We conduct city monitoring from time to time, go around places where Saxaul trade might take place. This time we didn't find any. Looks like our efforts are paying back. Did people get used to it? Have they already abandoned Saxaul? Yes, nowadays people mostly use apple, charcoal or elm tree coals for barbecue or shashlik. Our story about Saxaul has come to an end, but it's too early to draw conclusions. Fight for the protection and preservation of relict Saxaul forests goes on. The confrontation between people and sand continues. And Saxaul is helping humanity. What are the ways of preserving the nature in its pristine and harmonious state? Is it possible to revive the species of animals that have been lost? What does Kazakhstan contribute to restoration and protection of natural ecosystems? We'll tell about it in the next episode.